Number 10, Mandela. What is the Mandela effect for those of you who don't know? Well, it is essentially a phenomenon where large amounts of people remember an idea or an event wrong. It was coined in 2009 after an article was published by Fiona Broom, who noticed the phenomenon that people seem to remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison during the 1980s, but that's obviously wrong because he died in 2013. Well, I guess not so obvious, since a lot of people swear that it happened. Many people believe that these examples are proof that we could be living in a parallel branch of the universe. After all, if you follow Hugh Everett's many worlds hypothesis, it could be that Mandela was both alive and dead at the same time. Hence the term the Mandela effect. Number 9, Looney Tunes versus Looney Tunes sound the same, but it's not. So many people believe that Looney Tunes was actually spelled T-O-O-N-S, but the reality is that it's actually tunes, like iTunes. Doesn't seem like that big of a difference, but why would it be tunes? Why would it be tunes? The show isn't about music, though musical numbers do occasionally happen, but it's not about music. The reason it's tunes, not tunes, lies way back in the 1920s. Disney was making bank on a series called Silly Symphonies that encouraged people to buy sheet music. They didn't have television, so entertaining themselves at the piano was a common thing to do. To keep the bankroll rolling, Disney came out with 2 new programs, Merry Melodies and Looney Tunes. The more you know. Number 8, Oscar Mayer versus Mayer. It's actually Oscar Mayer, not Meyer. It's actually spelled M-A-Y-E-R, not M-E-Y-E-R. Confused? It's okay, it's not your fault. There's actually an explanation as to why so many people think the spelling is the latter. In the famous Oscar Mayer Wiener song, see Oscar, I can't help but say it. Oscar Mayer Wiener song, the singers say Oscar Mayer, which doesn't spell out Meyer in our heads. So like, we know Mayer is supposed to be pronounced Mayer. Just look at John Mayer, that's how he spells his last name. And it would be weird to call him John Mayer, right? Try singing the song in your head right now, or out loud, do you? And try saying Mayer instead of Meyer. Sounds weird, doesn't it? Number 7, We Are the Champions. So I actually listened to this song when I found this out, which was today. It's true. And the karaoke lover inside me feels betrayed. I distinctly remember the ending of the song, Freddie Mercury belting out "of the world," but he doesn't do it. But every time I catch myself singing, like waiting to join him in that final triumphant "of the world" at the end of the song, but it never happens, and now I know why. Because he never did it. Freddie actually only ever ended the song that way once, when he performed at Wembley Stadium. The performance was so iconic that we remember it that way. Number 6, Henry VIII and his turkey leg. I remember going to medieval fairs, medieval times as a kid, it was my jam. And carts always sold massive, like I don't even know how they got a bird that big, massive turkey legs. A famous portrait of Henry VIII shows him with a turkey leg, but that's not actually the case. But historians swear they saw it and swear that it existed. He's actually holding a pair of leather gloves in his hand. Perhaps because of his heavy-set depiction and malicious behavior in life, many people wanted to find a reason to make fun of the king, so you'll often see cartoon drawings of the king often paired with a turkey leg in his hand. Another reason people paired this image with Henry is due to another painting of him in Anne Boleyn. In it, he is holding a mirror which somewhat appears to be a turkey leg. Number 5, guys, this one's weird. I never noticed it. Obviously, they wouldn't be on this list if I knew it before, right? I guess so. Anyways, C-3PO, the golden droid of the franchise, wasn't actually all that golden. Apparently, he has a silver leg. Maybe it was the lighting in each shot, but I seriously don't know. I don't know how I could have overlooked this. I've watched 4, 5, and 6 specifically because 6 is my favorite, because it's obviously the best. I've watched them so many times and I never noticed it, not once. But I'm comforted. I don't even think I can call myself a Star Wars fan anymore. It's just, I feel so lied to. But I'm comforted by the fact that I'm not the only one. To be fair, there's so much going on in the film, I never thought to look at his leg and be like, oh, look at his leg. But apparently this discrepancy is due to the fact that when manufacturers released the toy of C-3PO, they didn't add the silver leg, leading most of us to believe he was entirely gold. Number 4, the Berenstain Bears. Everyone remembers the Berenstain Bears on TV in the morning or after school. For me, there was nothing better than grabbing a glass of OJ, sitting down with some cereal, seeing what those bears would get up to next. Before you get worried, yes, they actually existed. But, of course there's a but. It's Berenstain Bears. Stain, not Stein. I swear to God, they changed it and just didn't tell anyone. There's no way. The reason we might remember it that way is probably because of how we say it. No one says, oh, the Berenstain Bears. Nobody says it like that. Somehow we got into the habit of saying it that way and we put the pieces together in our head. Funny little world. funny little world. Alright, number 3. Curious George. Had to be one of my absolute favorite stories as a kid. I just loved getting to hear all about that mischief the monkey was gonna get into. Curious George is a monkey after all, and most monkeys have tails. Something the illustrator left out when he created George. He gave a man a big yellow hat, but he didn't give George a tail. Again, I asked the MA team, and we were pretty well divided. Some people knew he didn't have one right away, which kind of goes to show how big of a fan they were. Me? I'm still struggling to picture George hanging from a tree using his legs and not his tail. Doesn't make sense in my head. Anyways, number 2, the Monopoly Man. This one caused a fair amount of discourse between the MA gang. I don't know how this happened. I can't unsee it in my brain. I actually hate Monopoly because it just never ends. I need there to be an ending so that I can leave and escape and run away. Cause like, if the game goes on too long, I want to die. My nightmare was once playing a 2-hour game of Monopoly. That little monocled man laughing at me when I was sent to jail. Except for the fact he didn't have a monocle. He has 20/20 vision. How the heck? How did I remember that wrong? Apparently, the reason could be that he looked very similar to the Peanut Man? I don't know. What do you think, guys? Number 1, this is for all the 90s babies, or 80s babies, whatever works. Shazam! I think I had to take a knee for a minute after this one. It just doesn't make sense. Do you guys remember the comedian Sinbad playing a genie in a movie called Shazam? 2 kids accidentally summoned a genie and Sinbad played the genie who tried to make their dad fall in love again. Like, I can see it. I can see it in my head. Sinbad with his like purple shirt and turban and stuff, and he's hilarious and he was charming and snarky, but it doesn't exist. There are pictures, but no one knows where it's from. And I looked on his IMDb and there's no movie where he played a genie, but there's pictures of him playing a genie and I just don't get it. There was a movie called Kazam with a similar premise, but played by Shaquille O'Neal, which I also remember. I definitely watched that movie too. If Shazam doesn't exist, where did this picture come from? I don't know. Which I also remember, but it was a different movie than Shazam. Where did it go? Where did it go? Or did it exist at all? Who knows?
Starting off at number 10 now, we have Chick-fil-A. I've intentionally got our editor to blur this out while you guys think about the spelling of this famous fast food company. I'm sure many of you have eaten there before. How is the chick part spelled? C-H-I-C? C-H-I-K? It's got like a weird spelling, hasn't it? Nope. It's this. It's just the normal spelling of the word chick. Yeah, this one even got me. Somehow, millions of people around the world seem to remember the name of this company being spelt a different way, usually with the word chick just ending in a single C or K. The company has been around since 1946 though, which leaves just one explanation for living in a parallel universe where everything is exactly the same, except Chick-fil-A has an extra letter in its name. Thank God we spotted that. Next up at number 9 now, we have Interview with the Vampire. Okay, so there are a few on this list that I have never experienced or even heard of. This isn't one of them. This is a Mandela effect example that really stumped me the first time I heard about it. Interview with the Vampire is a 1994 movie starring Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise. Now, I'll be honest, I've never actually seen the movie, but up until very recently, I would have sworn that it was called Interview with a Vampire, not the Vampire, a vampire. I had heard people talk about it all the time. I had a friend who absolutely loved it, but somehow I had been hearing the wrong thing all these years. It wasn't just me though, many people feel the same. This is such a common mistake that the top search result on Google for this movie is actually the incorrect version. My version, and I'm sticking to my version. Thank you. Next up, number 8 now, we have JFK. Normally when I talk about President John F. Kennedy, it's some sort of conspiracy theory about his death. Not today though. Today we're just going to count the number of people in the car when JFK was shot in that famous footage. Most people, myself included, think there were 4. I wasn't around in 1963. I'm just referring to the footage that I've seen, but I remember there being 4 people, 2 in the front and then JFK and Jackie Kennedy in the back. Well, for one of the most watched pieces of footage of all time, it seems we weren't paying attention, as there were in fact 6 people in the car. If you were one of the people who thought this, you can be forgiven though, as the camera angle often makes it difficult to see properly. And moving on to number 7 now, we have Curious George. Who remembers the adventures of Curious George? From 2006 to 2015, this monkey entertained kids all over the world in his TV series, a show which was adapted by books of the same name. Do you remember his tail? His little monkey tail? Well, if you do, your memory deceives you. Ever since Curious George first appeared in children's books in 1939, he has been without a tail. I'm pretty sure some of you have now paused the video by this point to go and prove me wrong, but yeah, no tail, sorry. It's understandable though. If there's one iconic thing about a monkey, it's his tail. So well done to George for being iconic without one. Moving on to number 6 now, we have Barbie Girl. I'm a Barbie girl in what? What's the next line there? I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world? Is that what you were gonna say? Well, that's wrong. It's never been getting it wrong. Not massively wrong though, but wrong all the same. Take a listen.
I'm a Barbie girl in the Barbie world.
That's right, she sings I'm a Barbie girl in the Barbie world. Not our world, the Barbie world. It's like a separate dimension, a parallel universe if you will. Perhaps this very song is a reason why the Mandela effect of Hannibal Lecter. Since its release in February 1991, The Silence of the Lambs has become one of the most famous movies of all time. Not just within the sort of horror thriller genre, but across all genres and eras. Anthony Hopkins plays the part of Hannibal Lecter, a former psychiatrist and incarcerated cannibalistic serial killer. The scene where he is first introduced to Clarice Starling, played by Jodie Foster, has become iconic in its own right. If any of you have seen it, I'm going to ask you, what does Hannibal first say to Clarice? Oh wait, okay, waiting's over. If you think he said, hello Clarice, well I'm afraid to say you're wrong. He never said anything of the sort. Let's finish by taking a look at what actually went down.
Good morning.
Dr. Lecter, my name is Clarice Starling. May I speak with you?
You're one of Jack Crawford's, aren't you?
Moving on to number 4 now, we have Mr. Rogers. For over 30 years, Mr. Rogers entertained and taught children how to live and love in his TV series Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Millions of young Americans grew up watching it. In recent years, it's become even more famous internationally. With all these people watching it, you would think that everyone would get the theme song, right? Right? Well, apparently not. The opening song was an iconic part of the whole show. Let's hear a little bit now. But now we get to the interesting part. This is the part everyone seems to get wrong. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people think that Mr. Rogers sings It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. But instead he sings this.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor.
Right there, he sings It's a Beautiful Day in this neighborhood. Not the neighborhood, not your neighborhood, not my neighborhood, just his neighborhood. Kind of takes the magic out of it when I break it down like that. Let's move on. Next up at number 3 now, we have the Bernstein Bears. This is a franchise that has had books since the 1960s and TV adaptations ever since. It follows the life of a family of bears and each episode has a lesson to teach. It was popular in North America, so if you didn't grow up there, like me, there's a chance you've never heard of it at all. Well, since the Mandela effect became a thing, many people all over the world have now heard of it. Essentially, lots of people thought the series was called the Bernstein Bears. It's not Bernstein, it's Bernstein. That may seem like a simple mistake, but people swear that it was never Bernstein. They specifically remember the TV show calling it Bernstein. They remember the books having Bernstein on the front. They are 100% sure, but when they go and check, they're wrong. And it's pretty freaky for some people. Some people have even produced products with Bernstein written on them, but they have often been dismissed as knockoffs or just replicas, or maybe they fell through a portal from another universe, or that. Next up at number 2 now, we have Sex and the City. This was a romantic comedy TV series set in New York that ran from 1998 until 2004. It was huge. There were even 2 spin-off movies afterwards. The thing is though, most people remember it as Sex in the City, but it never was. It has officially always been Sex and the City. Emphasis on the and, not is. If you're watching this and thinking that I must have got it wrong, well, you're not alone. Many people have made this mistake, including journalists. Countless reviews and articles have been written about the show that refer to it by this wrong name. And finally, number 1 now, we have Sally Fields. This is a lesser known one that might interest some of you more serious Mandela effect researchers. In 1985, Sally Fields won her Oscar for Best Actress in Places in the Heart. She gave a very memorable and rousing speech. Let's take a little look at that right here.
This means so much more to me this time. I don't know why. I think the first time I hardly felt it because it was all so new.
After that, whenever someone wanted to talk about that speech, they would quote the last thing that Sally said when thanking everyone. She said, "You like me, you really like me." But did she? Let's take a listen.
And I can't deny the fact that you like me. Right now, you like me.
She didn't say, "You like me, you really like me." She actually said, "You like me, right now you like me." Many people say they remember watching this speech and that something must have changed because they remember it differently, the first one. There are even some people who claim that the audio glitch we hear when she says it is some sort of sign that it's been tampered with or passed through from a parallel universe.
That you like me. Right now, you like me.
Personally, I think it's just a case of bad memory with people and maybe audio levels peaking.
Number 10, the London Hammer. Many times in history, people have found objects that they think could be evidence of a parallel universe intersecting with our own. Those thoughts were raised again when in 1936 a hammer was found in London, Texas. While on a walk, a couple found a hammer that looked like ones that had been used in the late 1800s. So cool, they found an old hammer. Well, there's actually much more to it. The hammer had not rusted at all, and still hasn't since it's been found. And it was also found encased in rock that dated back to the Cretaceous period. For those of you who don't know, that's around 100 million years ago. This is obviously weird because most people agree that humans only started popping up around 200,000 years ago. So how could this hammer have come to exist? Some people believe that it's the remnant of a parallel universe where humans developed long before they did on our Earth, or that it had potentially traveled back in time. If you live in Texas and want to check out this infamous hammer for yourself, you can find it at Carl Bowe's Creation Evidence Museum in Glen Rose, Texas. Number 9. Black holes. The existence of black holes is one of the greatest yet unexplained wonders of our universe, the first picture of a black hole only having been taken back in 2019. So how are they evidence of parallel universes? Well, let's get into some science here. Black holes are so hard to study because everything we've sent out there to try and get information is never seen again, people assuming that it's destroyed upon entering the hole. But Stephen Hawking said that whatever enters a black hole does come out, but it comes out in another universe. Because of the law of conservation of mass, even if something is destroyed, evidence of its presence would still be able to be seen. They would be visible in hair-like images that trace its path into the black hole. But Stephen Hawking noticed that evidence showed these hairs were not present, meaning the item has completely disappeared from our universe. And I'm really hoping this is making sense. Stephen Hawking says that this is good evidence that they have been transported to another universe, saying black holes are not the eternal prisons that we once thought. Number 8. Cloud City. In October of 2015, Chinese citizens were shocked by what appeared to be a floating city within the sky. Multiple people taking photos and videos of the cityscape that seemed to loom above them within the clouds. The shape was far too specific to brush it off as being anything man-made, and looked to clearly be a cloud city. People were left wondering what it could be, and theories popped up of parallel universes or even secret holographic technology. There was no time to answer these questions or speculate if it had even happened at all, as the exact same thing took place again in China in March of the following year. More photos and videos popping up again of the incident. Many people believe that this supposed city in the sky is evidence of another universe crossing over into our own. Feel free to take a look at the pictures for yourself and make your own decision. Number 7. Deja vu. Have you ever been walking down the street and gotten the sudden feeling like you'd done that before, even though you haven't? This is a phenomenon that is known as deja vu, or already seen. As of yet, there is no real scientific explanation for why people all over the world experience these feelings. And there are theories that range from memory problems to glitches in the Matrix. People who believe that deja vu is evidence of parallel universes describe it like this. Think of a radio where you can only hear one frequency at a time. The parallel universes beside us are at different frequencies. However, it's possible that for one small moment the universes might vibrate at the same frequency and become in sync. Since parallel universes are all supposedly just slightly different, when these in sync moments happen and you believe that you've already had this conversation before, it's possible that you feel that way because you did, just in a parallel universe. Number 6. The double slit experiment. Okay, this one is very sciencey, so bear with me. The double slit experiment was performed in the 1920s and seemed to offer convincing evidence of potential multiple parallel realities. The theory proposes that if tennis balls were fired at a wall through a single slit, then the marks on the wall would line up with the slit. So if you created 2 slits, it would create 2 lines on the wall. And if you fired waves through the wall, they would go through the splits, but still continue to spread out and leave multiple lines on the wall. And electrons should theoretically act in the same way that tennis balls do, but they didn't. They also made multiple lines as though they had been interacting with each other in the way that the waves did. But even when fired one at a time, it still made two sets of waves. For this to happen, it would mean that each electron somehow managed to travel through both slits. When they tried to film the electrons, they instead went back to just forming two lines like tennis balls. So this suggests that while parallel universes may be interacting with our own, we just don't have the technology to see it. Number 5, the blue rock. Alright, after that, let's go to something way more simple. In fact, let's go to something as simple as a rock. In 1990 in Sierra Leone, West Africa, an archaeologist found a puzzling bright blue stone. When it was sent for studies, it was found that it was not similar to anything that could be found on Earth, and it was determined that it was not from this planet at all. One person who once held the stone said, "It was perplexing and I had no idea what I was looking at, and I had no point of reference to compare it to anything else I had previously seen or handled before." Parts of this stone have come into the possession of many collectors over the years, and it is incredibly highly valued, likely because many people believe that similarly to the London Hammer, this is an artifact that has traveled to our own Earth from a parallel universe. Number 4, the Mandela effect. The term the Mandela effect first came around in 2009, when a woman named Fiona realized that she and many others shared a false memory of Nelson Mandela having died in prison when in reality he was still alive. She created a website to explain her observance of this phenomenon, shocked by just how many people all over the globe could possibly share this false memory. Over the years, many people have come together to share different examples of this Mandela effect. Some of the most famous ones being the spelling of the Berenstain Bears title, Darth Vader saying "Luke, I am your father" instead of "No, I am your father," and Curious George having a tail. Many people believe that a possible explanation for this is that the false memories are correct, but they're correct in a parallel universe, the memories bleeding over into our own world, as how else could so many people share this same fake memory? Number 3, the cold spot. Alright, back to science once again. When the Big Bang created our universe, the wavelengths of light expanded, changing the color and temperature of the universe to what we now perceive as black, creating the cosmic microwave background which maps the creation of our universe according to the Big Bang. While scientists were studying this background, they discovered what they referred to as the cold spot, being the size of 1.8 billion light years. While also being colder, it apparently also contains 20% less matter than it should. So how could they possibly explain the existence of this cold spot and why it is the way that it is? Well, experts believe that this is evidence of a parallel universe having crashed into ours through quantum entanglement, impact forcing energy out of the area and leaving behind the cold spot. Number 2, the Hadron Collider. Researchers at the Super Collider in Switzerland started researching in 2015, hoping to find evidence of alternate universes. They have done various different tests trying to find these parallel universes that would not exist in the visible 3 dimensions of our own universe, but instead be made up of dimensions that we cannot perceive. One scientist theorized that the Hadron Collider could reveal particles that could only exist in these other dimensions, and being able to see them would give us almost undeniable evidence of the existence of parallel universes in line with our own. She said that these particles would have the exact same properties of particles in our own universe, but would have greater mass. All of this is still theoretical right now, but plenty of theoretical things from the past have been discovered and made reality, so it may not be long. Number 1, the Taured Traveler. In 1954, a European plane landed in Tokyo. On the plane was a man who spoke several different languages, and he told the people there that he was visiting on business. He then gave them his passport, which said that he was coming from a place called Taured. If you've never heard of this country, then don't worry, you're not alone. That's because it doesn't actually exist, and it's a fictional country that is in between the borders of France and Spain. The man's passport was visa stamped, and he even provided a bank statement from the Taured Bank. His documents were taken and held in airport security while the man was left in a guarded hotel room waiting for police to arrive. But when they got there, the man was gone. People believe that this man was a visitor from a parallel universe where European history was different and led to the creation of the country of Taured.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have deja vu. At some point or another, most of us have experienced deja vu, and a lot of the time these experiences can be a little creepy and a little unsettling, to say the least. It's the feeling of having been there before doing the same thing, the feeling of already having experienced the present situation. It's weird. Perhaps it's just some sort of weird human phenomena that lacks an explanation, but maybe it's a sign or a signal that somewhere, perhaps in another universe, a similar situation already happened to the other you. This deja vu story reflects that quite well, as this person tells a story of a time that their deja vu saved their life. Diztronics17 on Reddit wrote in response to a prompt asking for everyone's creepiest deja vu moment, quote, "I saw a Prius on the shoulder of the Garden State Parkway. For some reason I had a memory of a Prius all of a sudden darting into traffic. As a precaution I moved over a lane and sure enough the idiot floors it into traffic without looking right where I would have been driving. Made me think." Maybe this again is just a weird human phenomena, but maybe it's a sign of something else. Something bigger. In our number 9 spot today we have the bird. This story comes from someone who saw something weird, and it wasn't out of the corner of their eye or anything like that. They saw it right in front of them as they were directly looking at it, and as of now there doesn't really seem to be any sort of concrete explanation as to how this could have happened. They wrote, quote, "I was standing outside work having a smoke. I was looking at the bike rack and thinking about how silly it was they just placed one there and didn't bolt it down or anything. Then a bird footprint showed up. Just one footprint, like a ghost bird put just one foot down in the middle of the otherwise undisturbed snow. It happened right in front of me. I was looking exactly where it happened when it happened. Very weird. Most likely the snow just happened to collapse in that shape, but still, it was strange. Maybe the snow just collapsed, maybe it was a ghost bird, or maybe it has more to do with another universe colliding with ours. Whatever the answer really is, this story kind of gives me the chills. Maybe the birds aren't the bourgeoisie and they can just jump timelines, and that's why they're so suspicious. In our number 8 spot today we have the ice cream stain. This is a strange story that someone posted online about a weird glitch in the Matrix type thing that happened to them, and it just might be an example of someone who jumped realities. They wrote, quote, "I spilled chocolate ice cream on my leg. I wiped it off and there was still a pale brown stain in the shape of the ice cream splotch. I told my mother, who said it was a birthmark. I will swear under oath that never before that moment did I have a birthmark there." Does anyone else have any weird stories like this? It's easy for us to chalk these things up to just having a wild childhood imagination, but that's also because it's an easy explanation. Maybe it's time we start asking ourselves the harder, more interesting questions. I feel like someone would remember having a birthmark, right? In our number 7 spot today we have the randomness. Okay, when looking for signs or signals from other universes, sometimes we have to look in the most peculiar places, and that includes some of the strange things that happen in our reality. Bizarre, seemingly random things happen here all the time, and maybe it's because we live in a weird world, or maybe it's a sign that since the idea of parallel universes means that there's a universe where basically every random thing you can think of is a reality, we just live in a universe where some of those random things are bound to happen. Like, who would have guessed that Napoleon would almost be taken out by a bunch of bunnies? Or like how people can survive the seemingly impossible, like a fall out of an airplane at over 30,000 feet without a parachute. You know, just things you hear that you can't believe. I'm sure many of you watching this have seen a video on this channel at some point that had someone say something that made you go, really? And that's what I'm talking about. Maybe this isn't the best evidence of parallel universes, but hey, everything counts. In our number 6 spot today we have the conversation. This is a story that comes from someone who seems to have a sort of unusual talent, we'll call it. Maybe they're just super smart, maybe they can see the future, or maybe something else is going on here. They start by explaining that they have dreams about people or places they've never seen before, and then without fail a few months later they'll be with the people or in the place that they had dreamt about. They also have this ability to sing a random song while another one is playing on the radio, and then somehow, like magic, the next song that plays is the one they were just singing. They then go on to say, quote, "One super weird thing though happened in about 2012ish. I was 19 and living at home with my parents and younger sister still. I came home from work from my job at a barbecue place and my sister says to me, 'Oh, I thought you were off today.' I'm confused because I left at 5 a.m. before anyone was awake, and I ask her, when did I say that? She says to me, like 2 hours ago in your room. She thinks I'm screwing with her, so I tell her to smell me because you can smell the barbecue sauce and smoke on me. Then she gets really creeped out and tells me she had went into my room earlier and saw me in bed with covers up to my neck and had a 15-minute conversation with me. That really creeped me out, and I never felt comfortable in that room ever again. This actually would be really weird to experience for everyone involved. Maybe this was just a weird glitch in the Matrix, or maybe something else was at play here. Whatever it is, it seems like this person has a lot of weird things happening around them. In our number 5 spot today, we have black holes. Black holes are some of the most mysterious, mystifying, and terrifying things that exist out there in the ether. They can be super small or massively large, and they are extremely dense. Their gravity is so strong that absolutely nothing can escape, and that is exactly why. I mean, coupled with the fact that one of these will turn you into spaghetti if you get too close, but that's why we know little to nothing about what lurks on the inside. Hear me out, especially if you've seen Interstellar, great movie by the way, Matthew McConaughey is so good in it. What if black holes somehow connect us to other universes? I know it sounds insane and kind of like a silly idea, but in the end, if other universes exist and they run parallel to ours, then there really is no idea too wild or crazy, because that's one of the most insane things I can possibly think of. In our number 4 spot today, we have the hand. This is a story from someone who just might have seen a hand reach from another universe into ours. Maybe it's all just a glitch in the system, but it's an eerie story nonetheless. They wrote, quote, "I was putting makeup on and from the corner of my eye I saw what looked like the shadow of a hand slap down onto my nightstand. Would have dismissed it as my brain playing tricks on me or something, but I heard it too, and it sounded like a really loud smack. It was weird, but I've experienced so many small unusual incidents like this, things randomly falling or shaking, so I guess I've become apathetic to it. That was the first time I ever actually heard the thing too though." Not only would that be pretty terrifying, but also so confusing. You wouldn't trust your mind no matter what it was telling you. You know what you saw and heard, but could it possibly be true? Maybe there's a reasonable explanation, maybe it's whoever's in charge of the simulation, and maybe it has something to do with another universe. At this point, anything is possible. In our number 3 spot today, we have space signals. There are tons and tons of signals that we detect from space every single year. Some we understand and can figure out where they're coming from and what is causing them, and some others aren't quite so clear and have stumped researchers for years. Some believe that these mysterious, unexplained signals are coming from extraterrestrials. Perhaps the signals we are receiving is from some sort of space situation that we just don't know about yet because it doesn't occur close to us here on Earth. The possibilities really are endless when we're talking about the ever-expanding universe and the unexplained things that exist within it, and that is why, just perhaps, these signals could mean something else. Maybe in another universe we are well aware of the other universes that exist parallel to that one, and we are trying to communicate with the one that we live in. Maybe the signals are being sent through black holes. Okay, maybe I'm getting a little far-fetched, but really, anything could happen. In our number 2 spot today, we have the time jump. This is a story about a location that has some weird sort of time jump. At first, everyone thought the person experiencing it was playing some kind of a prank, until others experienced it for themselves as well. They wrote, quote, "Had a friend who was convinced something was wrong with the area between the nearby town and his home. Or maybe it was his car. He claimed that many times he'd leave work and somehow be home 5 minutes later when it was a 15 to 20 minute drive. It was crazy. He wasn't the only one who experienced it either. Happened to a few friends that rode with him. Definitely weird stuff." I mean, listen, I hate commuting, so I wouldn't be upset by this sort of a glitch, but I would definitely be confused. I'm glad other people got to experience the weirdness of the situation too. I wonder if it had something to do with just his car and the area, because you'd think other people who drove the same roads would notice the same thing too, right? In our number 1 spot today, we have the Mandela effect. The Mandela effect began being widely recognized when people began to swear that they could remember Nelson Mandela passing away in the 1980s. This is of course weird since he actually passed away in 2013. That's a huge time discrepancy, so people were very confused.
This of course is how it got the name the Mandela effect, and basically there are two main ideas behind this theory. One is that whoever is responsible for the simulation we live in has gone back and changed some things, and the other theory applies to us in our video today, and it's the idea that in a parallel universe the things we remember happened, but then somehow we jumped into this timeline in which things happened similarly but slightly differently. Other really famous cases of the Mandela effect are the Bernstein Bears, where some people swear it used to be spelled with the ending being S-T-E-I-N, while all copies now are spelled with S-T-A-I-N. Or the popular peanut brand called Jif, there are people who swear it used to be called Jiffy. The list just goes on. There are tons and tons of examples of the Mandela effect, and I think most people can relate to at least one, so maybe this really is signifying something bigger going on here.